What do you love about eLIVate?
So eLIVate is special to me because I believe that it conveys a truth that can be found in many different types of messages. So it can be found in spiritual messages, it can be found in self-help messages, even in several different religious messages. eLIVate is a vehicle that we have been able to use in our own lives to enrich our own lives, to overcome challenges, and it's a freeing tool that we've been able to use to free ourselves, and now we're able to share to free others. And I love it because the way that we've combined the concepts is logical, easy to follow, but also universal. So it can apply to anybody at any phase of their life, and they can take it for whatever their struggle is at that time or whatever they need to overcome or improve, and they can use it again and again.
Yeah, and I think that this is one thing that we always say about eLIVate is that, like you said, it is a universal truth. It's just reminding people and taking off the layers of this universal truth to remind them of innately how perfect they are and how they can achieve anything that they desire using these principles that again are totally universal.
And that everything they need is already within them.
Exactly. It's just about taking off those layers of limiting beliefs and blocks and negative thoughts, things that we take on from other people's suggestions, we take on from even pre-birth, the perception that we have there, and then moving forward all the way throughout life.
Yes, and giving people practical exercises that they can use, because a link in the self-help industry that we've found has always been that they give you all this theory and information, and then you don't really have a way to incorporate it into your life. So we were always big on saying, okay, how do we provide these tools to other people so that they can actually implement the concepts that we find to be the most powerful in the fastest way possible?
Yeah, exactly. As being able to actually implement it in your life, making it practical to that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think what's great about it is that it actually, eLIVate came from our own struggles. We both have gone through some things that have kind of taught us. We've been able to use these principles, not knowing what they were at the time maybe, but we were able to use these principles to go from a point A to point B. And be able to accomplish whatever we desired in life, really.
Exactly. So tell me a little bit more about your personal journey and how you were able to utilize these concepts to overcome hardship in your life.
Yeah, I've gone through so many different struggles, but the biggest one for me is moving from a totally different country to the United States and not speaking a word of English. When I moved here to the United States, I was only 16. And 2 weeks later, I was thrown in high school and I didn't even speak a word of English. So that was an interesting time for me, but it was because it was sink or swim. Some of these concepts that I had learned even prior to that through self-help books and motivational books, spiritual books, religious books, had helped me get through the struggles of that and be able to kind of overcome anything that that really was a struggle or seemed to be like a struggle at the time. So I used a lot of those concepts then, and then moving forward, once eLIVate was given life, then I realized, this is what it is.
You were able to recognize it as the message that you had been searching for, or
Exactly.
a way to at least convey it. It helped you find your voice.
Exactly. Yeah, and what about you? What's your story with eLIVate, and how were you able to use eLIVate concepts to overcome some of the challenges in your life?
So I think that it always, to me, came down to choices and being presented with different options. So growing up in a household where I had one parent that was extremely disciplined and successful, and one that struggled with addiction and other dark things, I was exposed to two very different paths. And a lot of times when people are exposed to adversity, they feel disempowered, they feel helpless, they feel like they don't have a choice. And I remember the first time that I connected to one of these concepts when I saw my dad reading a book one night, and I said, "What are you reading?" And just innately I was drawn to the book in his hand. And I don't know if it was the cover, because back then it was an old book and the cover was actually a spiral, so it looked really colorful and crazy. The cover has since been updated of that particular book, but I knew that something was trying to connect me to the truth that I was entitled to from birth, because we are all born to succeed. Just innately, that's our programming. So I was able to be drawn into those concepts and to really absorb them. And in times of need, when you have a choice to lay down and give up versus get up and prevail, you know, you have the information you need to make the right choice for you at the time.
Right, being reminded of that universal truth.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you talked about how really the missing piece from all these self-help and motivational things or categories of books and audios was that there was the practical portion of it that was missing. I mean, you could have a bookshelf of all these books but not really have the life that you desire and that you feel fulfilled in. I know that there are some things that we are doing that are kind of fulfilling that missing piece. Which one is your favorite thing that we are doing in terms of those?
Well, I think in terms of longevity, because like you said, with the self-help books on your shelf, having a million on your shelf, right? So you can read a book, put it down, feel so empowered, say to yourself, I'm going to change my life, this is the time, and then not have the practical exercises, right? So the longevity of that feeling that you had when you were energized or empowered from that book, it just doesn't last. It's more of a temporary fix. And I think that through our membership model, actually, we've given our clients or given our members a way to draw from these experiences over and over again. So even the simplest exercise that they can participate in for one area of their life that they're struggling, once they have that content and those exercises and they face another challenge in their life, they can actually go back to that and reapply it because they're universal. They're easy to do, they don't take a lot of time, and they're accessible to our members. So I do like that a lot. Yeah,
and I think the membership also adds a very important piece, which is the accountability portion of it. It's almost like we personally are keeping them accountable for whatever they are trying to accomplish or whatever life that desire to have. And I know that obviously the additions of the podcasts and the meditations and the eLIVations, the mantras, all of those things are supporting the same sort of system. The bottom line is to try to make sure that it is, like you said, a practical system where it's not just a bunch of books sitting on the shelf, but it's applying to their everyday lives.
Exactly, and it's forming new habits, because the limiting beliefs, limiting thoughts, and limiting actions that people have developed didn't happen overnight. They happened over a long period of time with repetition. So it's helping them have access to a place where instead of logging onto Facebook every day to read the news of what's going on, they can log into their membership site, they can read something uplifting, they can do an exercise that's going to move them forward, and they can ultimately change the patterns of their thinking, their emotions, and their actions in a positive way.
Yeah, it's really a lifestyle, isn't it?
A lifestyle.
Yeah.
Totally.
What does eLIVate, the word eLIVate, what does it stand for?
So eLIVate is an acronym. So when we sat down and we compiled all of these concepts, we wanted to create basically an easy to remember acronym that would resonate with people but still stayed true to what we were trying to convey. And eLIVate is energy, love, inspiration, vision, alignment, truth, and empowerment. So the way that we see it is, as you know, a 7-step journey to a transformed life.
I love that.
So Nona, why don't you explain why the concept of energy is so universal? So like, why does it apply to everybody and everything?
Well, energy, if you think about it, and I get the question of like, what is energy, or what do you mean by the chapter energy in your book, or the concept energy with eLIVate? And I think it is, like you said, it is a universal thing. So all of us at our smallest bits are made out of energy. So, and the way I like to explain it to people is that when you walk into a room and you realize, like all of a sudden you're happy or you're excited, or you can, sometimes we even use the verbiage of like, this person has good energy, or this, I walked in and I felt really good automatically. Of course we might contribute it to like the weather or the temperature or, you know, the person looking nice or whatever. But the reality is it is the vibration or the energy that they are giving off. And that's everything in the universe is made of energy. So you could use the concept of energy to create what you want, as long as, since we're talking about these concepts as vibrations, whatever it is that you want is, if you're able to vibrate at the same level that exists in the universe, then you will be able to have that in your physical manifestation.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's about attracting, and I think that what's awesome about the concept of energy and the way that we explain it in our book is the interconnectedness of everything, and the intelligent design behind the world and our bodies even. So how our bodies are built to run perfectly and seamlessly with no illness or discomfort, if you will, or disease. How birds innately know to fly in formation, bees know how to pollinate flowers, and animals know how to nurse their young. There's a reason for that. It's the intelligent design, because our innate programming is for success. And our sheer survival, just looking at the fact that as a species we survive on this planet, is proof that we are built for that. We're not built to fail. Our species thrives. We make it through life every day in a chaotic world. And it really gives people a way to say, okay, I have all this energy in my body and I know that things around me are made of energy, but how do I harness that to my advantage? And I think that's what we've really done through the concept of energy and eLIVate.
Yeah, and another thing I love about energy is the example that we use in our book of what you mentioned about the interconnectedness of things. I think we use the example of the ocean and being a drop in the ocean, or having that drop in the ocean, where you could be that drop, but you're made of the same thing, and everybody else and everything else is also made of the same thing. It just makes you feel really connected. And it's one of the universal truths.
It is, yep. And connected as the drop, but as powerful as the source that you're a part of.
Exactly.
So how would you explain the concept of love as it relates to eLIVate?
Yeah, and I love the chapter Love. It is one of my favorites. And I think my favorite thing about some of these universal truths that we talk about in our book is that they apply to your everyday life. So I know within the love concept, or the principles of love, we talk about forgiveness, we talk about loving yourself first, we talk about choosing love. And again, what I love about it is that these are practical things, and they come with practical exercises that you could apply to your everyday life to rid yourself of burdens and guilt and negative beliefs that you have about yourself, or if you have the need to forgive someone in your life, it really gives you the tools to do so.
Exactly, and I think that when we tie it back to the concept of energy, which we do in the book and we do in a lot of our lectures, you realize that what you're emanating every day is by choice. And if you choose love versus anger, pain, resentment, jealousy, even any of the emotions that are possibly classified as negative, that's what you're going to be emanating energetically, and that therefore, as a result of that, that's what you're going to attract. So
exactly.
The choosing love portion really takes you back to choice, saying I have a choice if something happens, how I'm going to react and how I'm going to feel about it.
Yeah.
And feeling love and choosing love, and that can be different, and we talk about that in the book, but choosing that really changes your own life as well as the person that you've interacted with on that level too.
Yeah, and what meaning do you give to a situation that happens, right? If someone cuts in front of you, or if someone does something harmful to you, or someone hurts your feelings, when you choose love, is really you're just choosing to give a different meaning to a situation that has happened, to a reality that has happened, for your own sake, really.
It is, for your own sake, and again, the interconnectedness, it all matters, choosing a loving response in a situation. So I always give the example of when you get in line and you get to the teller, for example, and you say good morning or good afternoon to the person, you don't know what their daily walk is like. You don't know what they go home to, if they're struggling with something. And just the smallest act of kindness, the smallest chance to choose love can impact someone's entire day or even their entire life in ways that we aren't even aware of. And again, taking it back to that personal power, love is actually a very empowering emotion, probably the most empowering, given that the opposite is fear.
And I think that other than the personal aspect of things in terms of relationships, also another thing that we use love is how we love our goals, or how we love a desired outcome in our lives, or how we have this grand vision that we want to accomplish. And we always talk about, even with that, choosing love over fear, not picking a goal because you don't want to be a certain way, or you fear certain things and therefore you want to become this, but choosing love because you want to achieve this so that you contribute, so that you are a better member of the society, so that you are vibrating at a higher level.
Exactly.
What about inspiration?
So inspiration might be one of the most important concepts of eLIVate, and not because being inspired is more important than anything else we teach, but because I think that the way society is structured and the way that people are raised and taught in school really disconnects them from their ability to be inspired naturally.
It is so true.
We've gotten really, really far away from it, and it's through that inspiration that our highest self, or the highest power, whatever it is that you believe in, is able to communicate the specific message to us that we're meant to hear and carry out in the world to make it better.
Yeah, and if we're adding on all that noise from Facebook and social media and TV and the news, really it just gets muffled and pushed to the side, and you just don't hear the inspiration. They exist, they come and go, but you're just not hearing, you're just not paying attention to them.
And maybe not even wanting to believe that that's the inspiring thought that has chosen you at that particular moment, because you've been raised that you should be an accountant because that's the practical job that you're supposed to take, and then you're supposed to join a large firm and make partner or whatever it is. But we lose touch with, you know, the person who's an accountant and comes home and just paints all night.
Right.
You know,
what their innate desire is, what they're born to do, really the difference between their innate desire, what they're born to do, versus what the society says they should be doing or they're supposed to do.
Yeah, and it gives people an opportunity to embrace themselves in a place where before they've had to turn away because of shame, or because they just believe that they should be different than what they really are.
Yeah, that's very true. Another thing I think about inspiration, because some people have asked us to define, like, what do you mean by inspiration? And I like the analogy that we've used in the book as well, which is, you know, when you have this string of thoughts that are just kind of passing by, and we have those every moment, right? The mind just kind of goes, you know, it keeps talking. And when you have this string of thoughts, there's one that usually stands out, where you're like, you get to pick it, and you get to follow through with it, and it gets you excited, and it gets you really happy. And to me, that's really what inspiration is. And that's how I know that that's something that I should follow through with. That's something that's trying to get to me, a message that's trying to get to me from the universe, really.
Yeah, and that message may come several times, so it doesn't give up on us. You know, our true nature, I think, will try to break through in many different ways. It's just about when we choose to act on that inspiration, which is huge, and not allow the limiting beliefs and the limiting thoughts get in the way of that voice.
And I think it's good to look at your childhood to see, and I was telling you earlier about how I realized when I wanted to write this eLIVate book was when I was only 5 or 6 years old. I was at my grandmother's house and looking through some books, and my uncle at the time had written a little piece, and I thought, this is so cool. Someone has created something on paper. And I asked my dad, I said, like, what does this mean, or what is this? And my dad goes, yeah, your uncle is a writer and he's written things. I think he was writing poems at the time. And I remember at 5 or 6 years old realizing one day I want to do this and I want to have a book. And I had forgotten about it. So it's really important, again, going back to the practicality of things, to sitting down and journaling or doing an exercise where it reminds you innately who you truly are, so that you can follow that dream or that inspiration, which it came to you most likely when you were a child because you were so open to it and you didn't have all these other distractions in life.
That's absolutely true, and paying attention to the underlying themes in our lives as well. So if you were a child and you felt very inspired to be a nurse or a doctor, if you don't now as an adult have an interest in the medical field, I think the underlying purpose is still the same, in that you might still have a nurturing, caring nature that you want to express. And that's still something that might inspire you today. So going back, like you said, journaling, trying to understand who you were when you came into this world, remembering what you got excited about and what you would have, what you would have done as a child in your free time is really important to reconnect to that inspiration. So how would you explain vision?
Vision is an interesting one, because the word vision typically would mean like you get a visual for something. It actually, to me, it is this grand vision that we have for our lives, for what we want to fulfill. It could be something short-term or it could be something long-term. But in reality, you don't have to have a physical picture of it. Sometimes it's a feeling that you have. So once I have this big grand life that I inspire to have, what does that feel like? It does happen to come with, with pictures in your mind, but not always. To me, that's vision. It's like how you want to live your life. What's your grandest vision that you want to accomplish? And all the different aspects or concepts of eLIVate will help you achieve that in a practical sense.
I totally agree with that. When you said your grandest vision, I think that it's your idea, if you will, instead of associating with a picture, it's an idea or a feeling that you're meant to be someone or something or accomplish something that is greater than yourself. And so recognizing that you have a big purpose and therefore a big vision, and it's something that you can hold on to and move toward, even in the face of challenges that you might experience when you're trying to accomplish a goal. Remembering your vision will always put you back on course and keep you moving in the right direction.
Absolutely, I love that.
Yeah.
So as we've already said, we're so big on practical things because implementation is really what needs to happen in order to have transformation. What are some things that are some of your favorite things to do in terms of those practical things for vision?
Well, I think visualization is the first thing that comes to my mind, because visualization is a powerful tool for the brain, in that the brain doesn't understand the difference between visualizing something and actually doing it. The same parts of your brain engage when you think about moving your arm and when you actually do it. So when you move through that, when we go back to energy, you're visualizing something, your brain believes it's happening, and therefore your energy is matching what you actually want to happen. And when you were talking about, it's not necessarily something you see. So visualization is something that can actually engage all of your senses, so you can feel what you're going to feel like when you're accomplishing your highest vision. You can feel what it would feel like to get behind the wheel of the car you want, for example. What is it like to touch the steering wheel? What does it smell like in the car? What does it sound like when the engine turns on? Making sure that all of your senses are engaged, so inside of your mind it's as realistic as possible, is one practical way to start moving in the direction of your goals.
Yeah, and they did that experiment where they would have athletes in a lab with things hooked up to their brains and measuring things, and they would sit in a bike and they would, literally physically go through the race that they would normally go through. And then they would have athletes that would just close their eyes and visualize going through that experience. And you're right, it is true, and that research shows that the same areas of the brain light up when that happens. And back to your point, it is extremely important to involve all 5 senses when you are doing a visualization too.
Absolutely, and a great way to do that, to engage the kinesthetic part of your senses, and actually a powerful concept we discuss in the book, is taking something from the abstract idea world and bringing it into reality. And something I know we both do every year, at least once a year, is create our vision board. And that gives you a way to touch and feel your goal kinesthetically, and actually start watching it manifest onto a board before it shows up in your reality. So the vision board is something, again, that we use as a practical tool to take, whatever our vision is and create it into reality, and remind ourselves of what we're aiming towards every day.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you know if you are in alignment or not?
You know, that's a really important question because that question is something that you should ask yourself literally with everyday life things that are small, but also with big decisions also. I think you know that you are aligned when you feel good about something. So I know we have an alignment pyramid that is available on our website. But it starts with spiritual, which means, you know, this inspiration comes to you or this big goal comes to you, whether it was when you were a child or you're sitting and having coffee or one day you decide to quit your job or whatever that inspiration is for you, that's where it all starts with. The next aspect of things, it's mental. So if you have thoughts that are going against that big inspiration or that grand vision, if you would, then what's going to happen is you're going to get stuck right over there. So that is a misalignment, if you would. Then we have emotional. And what happens with that is if you have a misalignment in how you feel, let's say your thoughts are aligned with your inspiration, but now how you feel about it is not coming from a place of love, but it's coming from a place of fear. That's again a misalignment. And so the very last portion of the pyramid is a physical manifestation, which you really don't have any control over. Once the spiritual, the mental, and the emotional all line up and your feelings and your thoughts are all aligned with what you want to create in the physical world, that's exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get, it's automatic. You're going to get a physical manifestation. So it's really important to go back, monitor what we call self-audit, to make sure that all of your thoughts, your emotions are aligned with what you really want in life.
That's exactly it. And I think one of the things we talk about that's so important, we see a lot of clients and talk to a lot of people who say, well, I think I'm doing good, but then this outcome keeps showing up in my life over and over and over again. And we tell them that the outcome isn't the cause of what's going on, it's a symptom. And the self-audit actually, which is our exercise we create for our membership clients, is a way for them to actually look at their own alignment pyramids and say, okay, where is the breakdown here? Because the powerful thing is if you have a spiritual message, and then you have limiting thoughts, just like you said. So you're inspired to become a race car driver, but you think, well, I'm too short and I'm not that strong and my vision isn't great and I have to wear glasses. So there's all of these reasons why I can't do it, right? And our brains are like a computer. So the moment you put in data, the brain is going to give you every reason in the world to support that because it wants to be correct, right?
Yes.
So when we notice that we have those limiting thoughts, like you mentioned, that's a misalignment. So that actually stops that inspiration that we've had from our highest self on the spiritual level from showing up in our physical life at the bottom of the pyramid. And that, I think, when we made the foundation of the pyramid, so if you look at our website, obviously look into our book, and you see that our pyramid is upside down, it's because the foundation is your purpose. It's your spiritual purpose. And then it's about aligning your thoughts and how you feel about your purpose with what you want to happen in your physical world.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people know the concepts of law of attraction and thinking positive thoughts, but I think that this is very different and unique than those types of concepts in that it really gives you a basic structure, and that you can go back and you can self-audit and figure out, okay, where am I stuck? Am I stuck at the thought level or at the mental level or at the emotional level? And remove those barriers and those layers so that you can have the physical manifestation.
Absolutely. And I think it's a process that you can go through until you get to mastery. So you will get to a point in your life where you're looking at your alignment pyramid, and there's one in every area of your life. Like we always talk about, there's a career alignment pyramid, there's love, there's financial, there's all of these different areas of our lives, right? So we get to a point where mastery is where we can say, okay, something's wrong. I feel like it's on the spiritual level, actually. I feel like I'm not hearing the message I need to be hearing right now. Or I feel like what I'm feeling isn't in alignment. So you eventually start to become intuitive about where the breakdown is, and you can immediately go in and start doing that self-work that we teach to correct that problem right away.
Yeah, and I think for most people what happens is that it's not very clear where they are stuck. What it is like, I have these thoughts and belief systems that I want to lose weight, or I want to accomplish this, or I want to buy this, or I want to have this job, but then I have all these other thoughts. The reality, and it also goes a little bit back to energy, the concept of energy also. The reality is the energy of these two sets of opposing thoughts is really, they're fighting against each other, and whichever one is stronger, whichever one has more emotion into it, whichever one has been there longest is going to win. So it's like, how do we make this positive outcome of thoughts, kind of win over the other side?
Absolutely. And that's a process again, and it takes a really hard look at, okay, what do I actually believe and why? Because the reason you believe that is actually where you need to start.
That's exactly right. And that could have been there since you were born, or sometimes even prior to your birth. Those are things that you'll have to tap into and really get to know. What about truth?
So I think to explain the concept of truth, you actually have to start with what is not the truth, because that's where people are hitting a pain point, right? So there's actually research that has proven that between the ages of 0 and 7, we are unable to discern whether what somebody is telling us about ourselves is true or false. So for example, if your parents are, mad at you one day and they say, oh, you're no good at this, you take that information in as pure truth, and eventually you end up believing that information so much within your own internal thought system that the person doesn't need to be there anymore to tell you those limitations. Those limitations are actually within you, and we call that eating the ghost, right? So the ghost is within you. The person who actually gave you those limiting beliefs could even pass away, and we will be left with that residue. And so truth to us in eLIVate, I think, is so important because it's helping people get back to what they are, which is perfect, and the fact that everything they need to be whatever they want is already within them, despite anything that's happened in their lives, where they are right now, what people have told them. And
yeah, and what I love about what we teach with regards to this particular concept is the fact that we try to teach people, don't try to look at facts or events or situations as true or false. Try to look at them as useful or not useful. For example, if you have, let's say you want to lose weight, and let's say the fact or the truth is that you don't have time to go to work out. However, these are two conflicting ideas, right? You want to work out, you don't have the time for it, or that's what you believe. That may be the truth that you're choosing to believe, but what if you believed something else? What if you believed that you are able to make time for working out, which in pretty much all of our lives, we're able to do that. What's interesting is the people that you see that just kind of within the same example that work out all the time, that they are healthy, if you ask them about their belief systems with regards to this, is they would tell you, I make time to work out. They also might believe if I don't work out, I feel sick, or I don't like my body, or I don't want to be this way. And it is because of those beliefs that has led them to the truth that I can work out, I work out, and I have the body that I desire. So it's determining which of those beliefs are really useful to you in what you desire to accomplish in your life, and which ones are not.
Yes, so a belief matching system, basically saying this is my goal, and does the belief I have serve that goal or get me further away from it? And I think one of the examples that we give a lot that I love, actually, in our last truth workshop that we gave, was the street entertainer. What was his name?
I forget his name.
Name isn't even important. His story is so important because his parents had named him after a famous scientist, so Isaac.
Isaac, that's right.
And they had pushed him down that path so hard, and in his free time he was always practicing these new tricks and techniques, and specifically with this hoop, where he would put his body inside of this hoop and he could do these amazing feats of strength, basically. And finally he decided that he was just going to break out of the paradigm and follow his own truth, and now he's one of the most successful street performers in the world. He's so well known all over the internet, and he stayed true to himself. He didn't have to compromise his own purpose in order to serve anyone else's idea of what the truth was.
Yeah, I love his story.
So how would you explain the concept of empowered action?
I think empowered action being the last sort of concept in eLIVate pretty much not only sums it up, but it kind of brings everything together, because it's like you learn all these different concepts, but if you don't actually practice and you don't actually put it in place and you don't take action, then what good are they, right? So there's no use for those concepts, really. I think one of my favorite things about empowered action or empowerment in general is the concept of speed of implementation. And it goes a little bit back to inspiration too, when that the string of thoughts are kind of passing along and there's one thought that comes to you that you love. You're like, I have to follow this, right? When you take that and you implement it right away, the faster you implement that inspiration or that thought, you're really closing the gap between, you know, the intention of I'm going to do this and then also the fact that it would, you know, it would manifest in your life physically.
Absolutely. And the speed of implementation actually is one of the key tools that we teach for eliminating fear. And my favorite analogy when I talk about this, or when we talk about it, is if you're standing on the top of a high cliff and you're getting ready to jump into the ocean. That's what you desire to do, and there are two ways you can go about doing this. So you can stand at the top of the cliff and you can look down and you can analyze everything that's around and say, well, if I jump, maybe the wind will blow and I'll hit this rock down there, or maybe if I jump, I'll fall in the water and a shark will bite me. Or you can go through 1,000 different scenarios, because again, if you're putting into your brain the input, what could go wrong if I jump, it will give you back every answer in the world. But if you just jump in full faith, then the net will appear. And it's amazing that when you make that jump, that the universe just knows that you've made that leap in faith, and it provides the net for you. And that's, you know, and it's about sensing that and the difference. So a lot of people say, well, what if I just test it and I just put my toe in the water? Well, if you imagine a lake and you imagine somebody physically putting their toe in the water, the ripple is very, very small. So when you make a ripple that's small, there's not a lot of faith.
And it gets overpowered with all this other distractions that exist in the lake, right?
And commotion, right?
Yeah.
So then the outcome you get back is equivalent to the ripple you've created. But if you jump and you create a wave, you'll get back the energy of that wave, which will be all of the positive results you'll get from taking the leap in faith.
I also think what we tend to do as a society of overthinkers, because of all these distractions that are going on in our day-to-day lives, is that we tend to want things to be perfect before we take that first step. Like I hear that all the time. People are like, well, I want this to be totally perfect before I do such and such. But I think one of the things we talk about is like, jump in there. If it's aligned with you spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, then that's exactly what you're meant to do. And eventually what's going to happen is all the steps will just kind of line up for you, and all the way will open, if you would.
Absolutely, because we know that when you're inspired, there's no better time than now to act.
That's exactly right. I think what I'm most excited about eLIVate is that the world is ready for it. I mean, we've had so many people come to us and just show that they're hungry for the information and for this really a spiritual shift or this movement that exists in the world. And I'm so excited to be a part of that.
Yeah, when we talk about the interconnectedness of everything. So essentially we have a collective consciousness, and it's right now a consciousness where it's a world that needs more peace, it's a world that needs more love, and it's a world that needs to have purpose again. And I think that individually, it's like a chessboard. If everybody on the board is moving in a way that's congruent with their highest purpose, it will serve everybody in the most positive way. So I think that eLIVate is a way for us to create a ripple, if you will, or a splash in the water, and to help people really come alive.
Yeah, and make sure that they are reminded of who they truly are, what their truth is, what they're here to do. They're innately what's their purpose in life. And I think that's the most exciting thing, to watch people transform and have breakthroughs in such a short amount of time and watch that over and over and over again.
It's very rewarding. Right now, I think what's really exciting about spreading the message of eLIVate and being able to spread the positive threads of truth throughout humanity really is that the membership model is going to allow these concepts to spread on a very wide level, as well as our book. And we are in the process of training many individuals to teach these concepts to others through our life coaching certification program.
Yeah, and I think what the membership, again, what it provides, it's a really good, solid accountability for someone who needs inspiration or wants inspiration, who doesn't, in their everyday lives. And that is supported by the videos and the podcasts and all these other things that we're doing with the meditations and the eLIVations. And yeah, the eLIVate coaching certification is one of the most exciting things that we have, because that allows us to go even bigger and have more of an impact on people, because between the two of us, there's only so much we can do. But if we can teach somebody else to take the same concepts and change somebody else's lives, then it is going back to that ripple effect you were talking about. We're creating an even bigger impact in the world.
And it really expands the reach of our message.
Mm-hmm.